the leaves were changing and things like that, but the corn was green.
So as the climate changes and we start doing that movement,
And you can just do it like this by turning the camera around, remember?
but you start moving, you're going to start hitting different soils. So will people adapt by starting to plant different things than they used to plant? Or are the soils more,
Soils are a whole other issue. I'm not saying everything dealing with climate change has to be totally negative.
Right.
Maybe your growing season's going to be longer.
Right.
But the effect that I think that we're noticing in Minnesota is not a huge effect as far as lengthening our growing season. It's having colder, more unpleasant spring weather and more luxuriously beautiful falls.
Interesting.
But
then we got that really early freeze.
that's correct.
So that
They're punctuated by these frost events. So you have to say, position yourself so that you can survive that little bit of a frost, and then enjoy the luxurious Indian summer. For you or people who are members of the population of these metropolitan areas, is there truly a more beautiful place to live than Minnesota right now?
Oh, I know. I'm actually going to be moving to California at some point. I got so homesick when I was out there because it was 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking it's 90 degrees and it's October. This is not okay.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my favorite weather. And I was in tears all one day. I was absolutely in tears. And I thought, well, they keep saying, well, Tahoe doesn't. I'm like, no, you don't get it.
The only way you can change out there is change elevations.
Right, exactly.
And you can do that quite easily.
You can. I mean, 3 hours and I'm in 6 feet of snow. But it's different. I mean, there's something that just is so special about when the weather starts to change in Minnesota.
Have you been here all your life?
Oh yeah, pretty much. I lived in Wisconsin for a few years.
Same thing, upper Midwest.
Yeah. So.
What were you saying about now it's like we're in Tornado Alley?
Oh, the Tornado Alley. I think the point being that I think your point that you made about every 10 years you're seeing a 200-mile migration.
175 to 200 miles.
Yeah.
That's my off the cuff estimate. But it appears to me that that's what we're experiencing. And if you look at the way
I'm sorry, that 175 to 200 miles.
a decade.
Of migration of what?
The temperature zones.
Temperature zones. Okay, thank you.
So in other words, we're experiencing temperatures and climate that probably were more common to people living on the Iowa-Minnesota border 10 years ago, which in terms of tree species and things and plant varieties, it can make a significant difference. We may be getting to the point where, we may find shagbark hickories and some of these trees to be quite common in this area, where now they're quite a rarity and only live in sheltered areas. Versus we may lose some trees like sugar maples and things like that really enjoy that cold and things like that. So, and these things aren't just affecting Minnesota and the upper Midwest. I spend a lot of time in Mexico and I have a lot of friends in a lot of different businesses. They're having quite for apple year. All of Mexico's apple industry is located basically in the state of Chihuahua and in northern Chihuahua, and this would be west and northwest of Chihuahua City. It's in the Sierra, in the foothills. But what's happening is they're not getting enough chilling hours in the winter anymore to cause the proper floral bloom in the spring. So they're not getting these huge lush blooms, which is manifested in poor fruit crops. Okay, and this is an issue. This causes problems because they make they're Manzaneros. They make their living growing apples. They don't do anything else. So, excuse me, but this is affecting people all over the world. But there's opportunities too. I mean, there's people that are searching out microclimates, and they're learning how to farm in these areas by moving up the mountain. Have you heard of Driscoll Berry Company? They're pros at this. They're the largest berry company in the world, as far as dealing with strawberries, raspberries, and they're producing them year-round. And how are they doing this? They're following climates. You know, they're farming everywhere from South Africa, which has an incredible winter climate. I mean, we call it winter. It's obviously the southern hemisphere. It's summer there. They locate where they get these sea breezes, so they're great for berries. California has some of that climate too, but they're forcing people out because of government and policy changes. What you call it? It's a matter of regulation, over-regulation. So, but they're forcing these people into Mexico, and it's all over Mexico. Like in the state of Michoacan, have you heard of Michoacan? They have just a tremendous concentration of berry producers, and they're producing from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. Every 1,000 feet, you experience a climate change.
Oh, sure. When I did my sommelier training, and so we learned grape culture.
Yeah.
And it's very similar with grapes. The different places that you have to find, and how you get a different type of grape at the bottom, at the belly of the slope.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to me that you think of berries as being a little more hardy, but it makes total sense that they would find those pockets. But now, if they're doing that, is their availability of land becoming more limited, or are they just getting really good at finding those pieces?
I don't know. These are specialty crops that produce more revenue and hopefully more profit per given area than if you're growing beans or corn. So they can afford to go out and pay and acquire what I would call the primo land, the very best lands. And so they can afford to go buy it, or if they're in South Africa or wherever they happen to be. But I have some friends that I do a network a lot with. They're in England. Their company is located in England, but they farm in South Africa, they farm in England, and a number of countries.
I didn't even think of farming in England.
Right.
Isn't that funny?
But they have a niche there also because they have a microclimate. They have the maritime climate. You're familiar with that?
Sure, yep.
It hardly ever gets above 80, and it very rarely freezes in the winter. And where they have the same precipitation as we do here, about 30 inches a year, 35 inches of rain a year, they get it every day. Maybe a tenth or two every day.
But then it clears off, and
it's always cool, relatively high humidity. It's a perfect place for raising berries, strawberries, raspberries. Now they're moving into blueberries. And then there's government changes in here with the European Union. Very easy to move products between countries, not like it used to be with a tariff everywhere.
They also have some really interesting regulations in place that I think are very health-oriented that we don't even touch here.
Not yet.
And I'm thinking more not so much in the vegetable arena, but more in the animal production arena.
Oh yes.
But, and I think it's so interesting to me why they seem to be so much further ahead of us.
I'm sorry.
You're okay.
The United States is blessed with this huge area of land, arable land. I mean, farmable land, and probably more in the way of development than any country in the world. I mean, this is changing. Brazil is coming on so strong, and this could actually happen in some areas of Africa too, and some areas of countries like Ukraine. I mean, we have vast soil resources. They don't have the capital or the educated people to develop it. But what happens, I guess, is basically that as far as using this and comparing it to the United States, we've always kind of developed it, and if we didn't quite get enough, we'd get some more land.
Right.
Because it was so inexpensive. And it's not going to be that way all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
As we wear the land out, which we're doing just a great job, I think.
When I come out, I would love to have a discussion with you on that.
Agriculture's biggest enemy in this country is agriculture.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But I don't want. It can be so political, and everybody wants to take the argument in a different direction. Because everybody depends. Whether you work for Cargill or you work for ADM or who you work for, and I'm not saying those are great companies. I admire them and what they've done. They're feeding the world, and maybe that's the goal that we all need to chase: is how to feed the world. It's not how to make an extra dollar or to do everything organically. Can't we all get together and say we have 7 billion people on this planet today, and in another 10 years we're going to be up around 8 billion, and in 20 years we may be up to
we need to grow a lot more vegetables in the a lot less meat.
That's what the equation seems to dictate, you know, but
And I slant towards that direction.
I'm not saying there's any rights or wrongs. I'm saying we have to do what works.
But the
And we have-
resources that you use to grow what you grow compared to what it takes to grow meat, it's insane.
Yes,
The
but
difference.
look at it the other way. People who produce a lot of meat and then generate, you know, a copious amount of organic matter in the form of manure. Well, they do.
Well, you look at somebody like Smithfield, and they're not.
Well, what do they do with it?
They're responsible for the third largest pollutant spill.
Yeah, well, I understand this, but that's because the resource was underutilized or not the right precautions weren't taken. If they had a valuable resource, it's just the trouble is the resource is all in one area. They have 3 million animals within a small given area, so.
But you're right, there is potential there if that got turned around and worked in a different direction.
Exactly, it's an asset. You know, I'm constantly in search of organic matter for my farm.
I used to have sheep, and I used to have farmers come all the time, and they wanted
manure.
Absolutely.
Jerry, can you identify any folks or institutions that are thinking strategically about this?
Well, I think our state climatologist, his name escapes me right now, he'd be a good spokesman on that. You've heard him speak. Mark, what's his name? What's his last name?
Climatologist, I don't know.
Seeley? Mark Seeley?
Mark Seeley, that sounds familiar.
You know him?
No.
I've heard him speak a number of times. I mean, he's just tremendously well versed in climatological history. I think he's good. I've enjoyed hearing Paul Douglas a couple times.
But is anybody thinking, anybody in food, in agriculture, or in universities where that's taught, thinking strategically?
Well, I think there's, Penn State has a program that's basically, they call it their plasticulture program, but it's all around enhancing environments that you have and producing more from given areas. I think they're the only college I know that actually offers a degree in what we call plasticulture.
Interesting.
And so they're kind of, and I network with those folks quite a bit and find them to be terribly well informed. It's easy when I'm talking to them because I know so little and they know so much. But it's fun to listen to those people. I think that's a great state. And I do think there's companies out there, you kind of have to search them out. These industries are kind of fragmented. You know what I mean by that? I mean, there's people who specialize in shade cloth. There's people who specialize in structures, high tunnel structures. There's people that take different approaches. You know, they may be they may only plant on south-facing slopes, or they select varieties that are unique to particular microclimates. You know, these are all ways of addressing the climate. You know, there's certain varieties of certain plants that are much more forgiving. You know, and so
right now, is it every grower for themselves?
Kind of seems that way sometimes, but I think there's groups of growers out there that network among themselves and are working on these ideas together. You've heard my comment many times before. It's kind of trite, but on the farm we always say 2 heads are always better than 1, even if they are cabbage heads. But in reality, if you think about these, you know what I'm saying, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I talk to people every week from, whether it's through email or however, from either, England or maybe South Africa, or I have the opportunity of working with people from all around the world. And yesterday I just had the greatest conversation down here with, he's a plant pathology researcher at the university. His name is Dmitry Molov, and he specializes in, analysis, and he's a detective, basically. What pathogen are we working with? Whether it's a type of fusarium, or is it a tobacco mosaic virus or whatever. And he has the wherewithal, because of where he is, to go back and diagnose and analyze tissues, whereas a farmer like me can't afford to have a microscope that costs more than my home does. But so Yes, I don't think everybody's on their own in this. I think people are working. There's a lot of people out there that I criticize for, and I think people probably get mad at me for this, but for not giving back to your industry. Okay? It's very easy to pocket every dollar you make, but I think it's wrong.
You don't keep the flow going.
People always say, "Are you organic?" I says, "Nope, we're not organic. We're sustainable. We're going to be here next year in some form, shape, or whatever." And that comes from doing just exactly what we just said. Working together, and I'm as open as can be to anybody who's that open to me. Whether it's Terry Nennick do you know Terry from the university? He's just a great researcher out of, he's an extension professor and small fruits and vegetables, and he's just a great source of information. But he calls me as much as I call him. It's going back and forth.
Well, they've got to know what's going on with you guys too, I would assume.
They're there all the time, and it's great. But I go to his place too.
What was the growers group that I toured your farm with? It wasn't Central Minnesota Vegetable Growers. It was another one.
Oh, it was Minnesota Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association?
Yeah, so like that association did a tour of your farm so they could see what you were doing and how you were adapting.
Yeah, we opened up our farm to show them everything, and we're pretty, in general, a lot more open than we used to be, just because my philosophical changes over the years, that we're going to get a lot farther by working together, than working against each other. But
Are you still on the board of the Central Minnesota Vegetable Growers?
no, I never was on the board there.
Okay, because I wondered if they were doing anything with that grower association.
I think Marilyn Johnson, who heads that up, and the board, I think they're all very concerned about all these issues, and you got to remember that they're all basically farmers and growers by trade, which means they're kind of busy, so it's hard to find enough time. We've got a very qualified director, and Marilyn is just this great. She puts all the information together, so you don't have to read reams always, but I think they're concerned and they're working, and I think there's just lots of small groups that are working. I don't know. I think it's better than it's probably ever been before. People talking to each other anyway. But again, talk is cheap. It doesn't matter going out and living what you're.
I was trying to make a comparison between California and Minnesota, and I was asking my friend out in California, not just about working together in competition, and we were talking about how here sometimes I feel like it's almost everyone for themselves, and it's almost like they're afraid to help someone else out because somehow they think it takes away. And he said out there's a very mercenary culture, but what they discovered is they can't get there without this other piece, so they work together. Even though they're trying to, they understand that you have to have that cooperation, and if you do have that cooperation, you're both going to elevate. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
I think that, it's interesting. I find that when I tour around and go to different places, it's a lot easier for me to get access someplace far away from home because they don't view me as a threat than it does with my neighbor.
Absolutely.
Not that I've tried to go see my neighbor that much either. No, but I'm just using it. I've found people to be very open and accessible when I'm farther away from home. And a lot of the people do the things the same way. Obviously, California, they're blessed with a God-given climate that's so special, and they can use this, and they produce 2 crops, maybe 3 crops a year. So it's a great place, and there's a totally different philosophy out there. In many cases, it's an 8 to 5 job, being a farmer in some of these nicer climates. Here,
because they can.
That's right.
Yeah.
Here, we're hurrying,
Right.
and we're working 18 hours a day because we just have one little narrow production season.
But their 8 to 5 is year round.
Yeah.
While yours is, you've got to make hay when there's hay.
And they can amortize their equipment over 2 or 3 production seasons. So they, in theory, could pay 2 or 3 times more than we can for ours. You know? And the same goes for land. The land prices, although land prices are escalating very rapidly in this area.
Well, when we come out, I want to talk to you about soils too, because I'm really interested in that. Very fascinating.
Soils?
Well,